She walked into the pharmacy thinking she only needed medicine. But the moment the pharmacist asked, "How can I help you?" everything disappeared. The pain was still there. The words were not. She knew exactly what she felt in Portuguese. Headache, sore throat, dizziness, a strange pressure in her chest. But in English, her symptoms became a wall. And maybe you know this feeling, not because you never studied, not because your English is useless, not because you are incapable, but because real life does not wait for perfect grammar. Real life asks you a question when your body is tired, your mind is nervous, and someone is looking at you waiting for an answer. That is when English feels heavy. And that is where Clara's story begins. Because today, she will learn something simple. You do not need perfect English to ask for help. You need one clear sentence. And the first one is coming next. Clara had not gone to the pharmacy to have a deep conversation. She had gone because something felt wrong. Her throat was sore. Her head felt heavy. Her body was tired in that strange way that makes even small tasks feel bigger than they are. And under normal circumstances, this would have been simple. You walk in. You explain what you feel. You answer a few questions. You leave with help. Simple. But English has a way of turning simple things into emotional tests, especially when your body already feels weak. Especially when you know what you want to say in your own language, but not fast enough in the other one. And that was exactly what happened to Clara. She stood there trying to organize the pieces. Sore throat, headache, runny nose, blocked nose, congestion, dizzy, tired, weak. She knew the feelings, but she did not fully trust the words. And that is an exhausting place to be, because the problem is not only vocabulary, it is the pressure to answer quickly, the pressure to not look confused, the pressure to not hold people up, the pressure to not sound bad. And when all that pressure arrives at once, something curious happens. Your English does not disappear because you know nothing. It disappears because your mind stops cooperating. You know more than you think. But in the moment, fear speaks first. So Clara did what many people do. She smiled a little. She hesitated. And for a second she considered saying less than she needed to say. Maybe just one word. Maybe just pain. Maybe just pointing somewhere and hoping the pharmacist would understand the rest. And if you have ever done that, you already know this feeling. You are not trying to be dramatic. You are trying to survive the moment. And this is where real-life English becomes different from textbook English. Because real-life English is not about reciting a perfect sentence from memory. It is about building a bridge from where you are. Sometimes that bridge begins with full sentences. Sometimes it begins with very small, very human language. For example, "I'm not feeling well." That is not advanced. That is not impressive. But it works. Or, "I have a sore throat." Again, simple, but useful. Or even, "I'm not sure how to explain it." Now that sentence matters for a completely different reason, because it does two things at once. It gives information, and it gives you breathing room. It tells the other person, "I am trying. Please meet me halfway." And very often, that changes the energy of the conversation. Because most people do not need perfection from you. They need clarity. They need context. They need something they can respond to. That is why pharmacy English is not really about complicated vocabulary first. It is about functional language, language that opens the door, language that buys you time, language that helps the other person help you. And this is one of the most important lessons in spoken English. You do not always need the final answer immediately. Sometimes, you only need a sentence that keeps the conversation alive. A sentence like, I have a sore throat. I have a headache. I feel nauseous. I feel dizzy. I've had this since yesterday. It started this morning. That is real communication. Not beautiful, not fancy, but real. And when you learn to respect simple language, your confidence starts changing. Because confidence is not born when you suddenly know every word. It begins when you realize you can still move forward with the words you already have. Clara did not need to sound brilliant in that pharmacy. She needed to begin. That was the real task, not elegance, not fluency, not perfection, just movement. Just one honest sentence that could carry the next one. And once you understand that, something softens inside you. Because now the goal is no longer speak perfect English. Now the goal is much more powerful. Make yourself understood. That is a different kind of freedom. And it is often the freedom that starts everything. So before Clara found the perfect words, she found something even more important. A way to enter the conversation. And in the next moment, that small beginning led to the first truly useful exchange. Because the pharmacist looked at her, listened carefully, and asked the question that many learners are never ready for. Then the pharmacist asked, "What symptoms do you have?" And Clara froze. Not because the question was impossible. It was simple, a question she could understand in a textbook. But real life does not sound like a textbook. Real life has noise, a body that already feels weak, a head that feels heavy. And suddenly, one simple question becomes a door you are not sure you can open. Clara looked at the pharmacist. The pharmacist waited kindly. And in that tiny silence, Clara's mind started searching. Symptoms, sore throat, headache, tired, weak, dizzy, fever, blocked nose. She knew the feelings, but the words felt far away. So she tried to build the perfect sentence. My throat hurts, my head feels heavy, and I feel very tired. But her mind got stuck. Was it my throat hurts or I have throat pain? Was it I am tired or I feel tired? And the more she searched, the less available her English became. That is what pressure does. It makes familiar words hide. So Clara opened her mouth and said almost nothing. Not good. The pharmacist nodded gently. Okay, you're not feeling well? Clara nodded. Yes, not feeling well. For a second, she felt embarrassed, because it was not beautiful English, not elegant, not complete. But here's the truth. It worked. It was not perfect English, but it was communication. The pharmacist understood Clara was not feeling well, and sometimes that is all the first sentence needs to do. Not explain everything, just open the conversation. Then the pharmacist asked, "What's bothering you the most?" Not the whole story, just one thing. Clara took a breath. This time, she chose the clearest piece, and she said, "My throat." The pharmacist touched her own throat lightly and asked, "Sore throat?" Clara's eyes changed, because now she had a phrase, not from a vocabulary list, from the moment itself. Sore throat. She repeated it slowly. Yes, sore throat. And suddenly the conversation became less frightening, because now Clara had something to hold. One phrase, one symptom, one small bridge. Then the pharmacist asked, "Do you have a headache?" Clara knew that one. Headache. She had studied it before, but this time the word did not stay inside a notebook. It became useful. It became alive. She said, "Yes, headache." Then she corrected herself. "I have a headache." And that tiny correction mattered. Not because the first version was terrible, but because Clara was coming back into the conversation, back into her voice. The pharmacist smiled. "Okay, sore throat and headache. Anything else?" Anything else. Another common question. Another moment that could make someone panic. But now Clara had learned something. She did not need to say everything perfectly. She could add information in small pieces. So she said, "I feel tired." Then she paused. "And weak." The pharmacist nodded. "Tired and weak. Do you have a fever?" Fever. Clara knew the word, but she was not sure. Maybe that was stress. Maybe she had a fever. Maybe she did not. And here, many learners make another mistake. They think they must answer with certainty, yes or no, immediately. But real communication often lives in the middle. Maybe. I'm not sure. I think so. I don't think so. I haven't checked. These are powerful phrases because they tell the truth without pretending. So Clara said, "I'm not sure." Then she added, "I felt hot earlier, but I didn't check." And that sentence changed the energy. Now she was not guessing. She was describing, clearly, honestly. Enough. The pharmacist nodded. "Okay, do you have a runny nose?" Clara hesitated. Runny nose. She recognized the word nose. But runny, running, nose running. Ah, a runny nose. She said, "No, not really." Then the pharmacist asked, "Blocked nose?" That one made sense faster. Blocked. Like traffic. Like a door. Clara touched her nose and said, "A little." The pharmacist nodded. "A little blocked. Okay." And just like that, the scary conversation became a list. Sore throat. Headache. Tired. Weak. Maybe fever. A little blocked nose. Not a performance. A list. And for the first time, Clara felt something soften inside her. Her English was still imperfect, but she was no longer trapped inside the silence. She was participating, and participation is where confidence begins. The pharmacist looked at her notes and asked, "How long have you had these symptoms?" And Clara felt the next wave of fear arrive, because now it was not just what she felt. It was time. Since when? For how long? Yesterday? This morning? 2 days? A few hours? But this time, Clara did not disappear. She took a breath and prepared the next sentence. The pharmacist asked, "How long have you had these symptoms?" And Clara felt her mind search again. How long? It sounded simple. But when you are tired, embarrassed, and thinking in another language, even time can become confusing. Was it since yesterday? Was it for yesterday? Was it 2 days ago? She knew the answer in Portuguese immediately, but in English, the sentence moved away from her. So Clara did what she used to do. She smiled politely, a small smile that said, "Please do not notice that I am lost. Please do not ask again. Please do not make this bigger." But the pharmacist did not rush her. She just waited. And that small pause gave Clara something she had not given herself before. Time. So Clara took a breath, and then she said, "Since yesterday." 2 words. Simple, clear, useful. The pharmacist nodded. "Since yesterday. Okay." And Clara felt something shift, because the world did not end. Her sentence was not long. Her grammar was not impressive. But the pharmacist understood. And that is the part many learners forget. Real-life English is not a performance. It is a transfer of meaning, a need, a feeling, a problem. And English is the bridge that moves it from inside you to the other person. Then the pharmacist asked, "Did it start suddenly or did it get worse slowly?" And for a second, the old fear came back. But that fear was lying. This time she asked, "Sorry, could you say that again, please?" The pharmacist repeated it slower. "Did it start suddenly or did it get worse slowly?" So she said, "It started yesterday, but it got worse today." Not the perfect version, the useful version. Then the pharmacist asked, "Have you taken anything for it?" So she opened her bag. She took out the small box, and she said, "I took this." "Okay. Paracetamol. When did you take it? Any allergies?" "No allergies." "I don't have any allergies." One piece at a time. Clara was no longer just surviving the conversation. She was building it. Then the pharmacist looked at her kindly and said, "Okay, I can recommend something for your throat and headache." But then came the next question. "Do you prefer tablets, syrup, or lozenges?" "Do you prefer tablets, syrup, or lozenges?" Clara heard the words. Tablets, syrup, lozenges. One word was familiar, one was obvious, and one felt like a mystery. Lozenges. She had seen that word before, maybe on a box, maybe in a vocabulary list. But in that moment, with the pharmacist waiting, the word did not feel like vocabulary. It felt like pressure. Her shoulders tightened, her throat closed. Her mind whispered, "Choose quickly. Don't look stupid. Just say something." And that is how mistakes are born. Not because you are incapable, but because fear wants speed. Fear wants an answer before understanding. So Clara paused. She did not pretend to understand. She did not choose a random option. She asked, "Sorry, what are lozenges?" The pharmacist smiled. "Lozenges are small tablets you suck for your throat." Clara nodded slowly. Small tablets. You suck for your throat. Now the word had meaning. It had a use. It had a place. It had a picture. She repeated softly, "Lozenges." And then she said, "I think lozenges, please." A simple sentence. But this time it carried something new. Choice. Because when you understand enough to choose, you feel different. You are no longer being pushed by the conversation. You are participating in it. Then the pharmacist asked, "Do you have a dry cough, or are you coughing up mucus?" Clara froze again. Dry cough. Mucus. The word sounded clinical, private, a little embarrassing. In Portuguese she could explain everything. But in English her body became a complicated place. And this is where many learners suffer. Because symptoms are not just vocabulary. They are personal. When you cannot explain what you feel, you do not just feel confused. You feel exposed. Clara's first instinct was to say, "Yes." But yes to what? Dry cough? Mucus? Both? Neither. A wrong yes can create a wrong path. So she took a breath and asked, "What does dry cough mean?" The pharmacist explained, "A dry cough is when you cough, but nothing comes up." Clara listened. Nothing comes up. That made sense. Then the pharmacist said, "Mucus is when you cough and something comes up from your chest." Clara understood enough, and enough was enough. She placed one hand on her chest and said, "I think it is a dry cough. Nothing comes up." The pharmacist nodded. "Okay, dry cough. Clara almost smiled, because this was not just English anymore. This was her body being understood. Her discomfort had crossed the bridge, from sensation to words to another person. That is what confidence feels like in real life. Not loud, not perfect, just clear enough to be helped. Then the pharmacist asked, "Do you have a fever?" Fever. That word Clara knew. But the answer was not simple. She had felt hot during the night, but she had not checked her temperature. The old Clara wanted a clean answer, yes or no. But real life is not always clean. So she said, "I'm not sure. I felt hot last night, but I didn't check." The pharmacist nodded. No drama, no correction, just information received. And Clara realized something important. You do not need a perfect answer. You need an honest answer. "I'm not sure." "I think so." "I don't know the word." "Could you explain?" These sentences are not signs of weakness. They are tools. The pharmacist picked up another box and said, "This one may help with the sore throat. But if the fever continues or if it gets worse, you should see a doctor." Clara listened carefully. Help with the sore throat. Fever continues. Gets worse. See a doctor. The sentence was longer now. But Clara was not trying to catch every single word. She was following the meaning. Then the pharmacist placed 2 boxes on the counter and said, "You can take these every 4 to 6 hours." Every 4 to 6 hours. Now the conversation was about instructions, dosage, timing, safety, the kind of English you do not want to guess. So Clara pointed to the first box and asked, "How often should I take this?" Then she pointed to the second box. "And this one?" The pharmacist explained again. But Clara had one more question. Could she take them together? She was tired. Her head hurt. Her throat burned. But she was still present. So she asked, "Can I take them together?" And in that moment, Clara learned something deeper. Sometimes the most powerful English is not the English that sounds beautiful. It is the English that protects you.
Some of the most important questions come after the medicine is already in your hand, because the real problem is not only what to buy, it is how to use it safely. The pharmacist spoke calmly. "You can take these every 4 to 6 hours." Clara knew she could not guess. This was about safety. This time Clara did not just nod. She asked, "How often should I take this?" Then Clara pointed to the other medicine. "And this one?" A small question, a very useful one. Clara left the pharmacy with a small bag in her hand. Inside the bag there was medicine. But inside Clara there was something more important, relief. Not because she had understood every word, she had not. Not because she had spoken perfect English, she had not. But because, for the first time in a long time, she had stayed in the conversation, she had asked, she had listened, she had repeated, she had checked, and nothing terrible happened. The pharmacist did not laugh. The people behind her did not stare forever. The world did not stop because Clara needed more time. Life simply gave her another sentence, and she used it. Because now she understood something. English does not become lighter when you know every word. English becomes lighter when you stop disappearing, when you stop pretending you understood, when you stop saying yes just to escape the moment, when you allow yourself to be a real person in a real conversation, a person who can say, "Sorry, could you repeat that? I'm not sure. What does that mean? Can I take these together? Do I need to see a doctor?" Simple sentences, Small sentences, brave sentences. Because in real life, English is not a performance. It is not a test where everyone is waiting for you to fail. It is a bridge, a tool, a way to take care of yourself, a way to ask for help, a way to stay present when life suddenly happens in another language. And that day, Clara did not become fluent, she became a little freer. Free from the idea that she had to be perfect before she could speak. Free from the silence that had been protecting her and limiting her at the same time. Free to try again. And maybe that is where confidence really begins, not in a classroom, not in a perfect accent, not in a long, beautiful sentence, but in one honest moment when you choose not to run away. One breath, one question, one clear sentence, and then another. If you have ever frozen in English, at a pharmacy, at a restaurant, at an airport, on the phone, or in front of someone who spoke too fast, I want you to remember Clara. She was scared, she was embarrassed, she did not understand everything, but she stayed, and because she stayed, she learned. So the next time English feels heavy, do not ask yourself, why am I not fluent yet? Ask yourself, what is the next simple sentence I can use? Because sometimes the sentence that changes everything is not complicated, it is just clear. Sorry, could you repeat that? I don't understand. I need help. I have a sore throat. How often should I take this? And little by little, you stop watching life happen around you. You start participating in it. That is the real lesson of Clara's story. English is not only about words, it is about presence. It is about courage. It is about giving yourself permission to be heard. Thank you for being here until the end of this story. If this helped you, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next story. And if you want to go deeper, my full English training is waiting for you. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. I will see you in the next story.